Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Con Report wherever you get your podcast. You watch it on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. And I'll be doing the film review Tuesday morning and then the live stream show, 7:30 Eastern time, Tuesday night with the voice of the Commanders, Bram Weinstein. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see my pal Nicki Jhabvala here from the Washington Post. So we're going to get into the game. Commanders win 24-16. Never always fully pretty, but it's a road W after three straight losses. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, this was a big one. They had to win this game. Not sure what would have happened had they not, but they did. And they did it in a way that I thought they really needed to, which was, producing takeaways, showing, the secondary kind of getting back on track, the defense playing more up to its potential. So yeah, like you said, not the prettiest win, but a win nonetheless.
But does it have to always be pretty? I mean, this is like one thing. It's funny because I'm an Ohio State fan. You're upset if they win by less than 30, right? So, but college is different. The NFL, it's about W's.
Right.
And so I think like sometimes fans get upset, and I don't blame them. You want to see a good effort. You want to see, can this team go on a streak? But they needed to, I don't care how they came out of here. They needed to come out of here with a W.
They needed to win this game. I think the ugly part is more of it shows some persistent issues that could hurt them down the road.
Right. I think that's the big problem here.
Right.
Yes.
Right. But the focus should have been simply on, and it was simply on just getting the victory and trying to clean up as many of the mistakes from the recent few weeks that they could. And I thought they did. The three turnovers, three takeaways, getting those three interceptions, Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St. Juste, Jamin Davis to seal it. That was huge for the defense, no doubt. And Jamison Crowder coming up with that huge, that was the main spark for the entire game. That got everybody rolling, I feel like.
He ran out of gas a little bit there. Then I don't blame him. That's a long way to run.
Long way, yeah.
But it did create the spark. And that's, when you're losing this like this, and it's funny because you go from 1 week after the Bears where the sky is falling, and deservedly so after a game that was a bad game. Now you look and say, oh, you got the Giants coming up. You got New England in a couple weeks after that. Can you get on a run? But did you see enough where you say like, okay, maybe, or is it just, or you still say, you know what, we still have to see more?
Yeah, I still would like to see more. They got some big plays and some big plays from many unlikely characters. Between Khaleke Hudson, who got more playing time with the way they altered their defense. Tariq Castro Fields, who was elevated, came with that big tackle. Jamin, who was, kind of got under the skin of Jack Del Rio a little bit last season, it feels like, has really stepped up this season. He's really improved. And that was a big play, the biggest of his career, I would say.
That was, and what I liked about that, and it's funny because that's a tough assignment covering Bijan Robinson. They split him out wide. Yeah. And one of the things that Jamin has struggled with in the past has been leverage against, and you saw that actually today, he lost leverage against Pitts on one, but in that time, he made, he knew what was coming. He figured it was going to be a quick, double move, maybe a slant like that. So he played it right. So that was to me, a sign of growth for him and to seal it like that. That was just an athletic play at the end.
Yeah. I was just going to say, there's not many linebackers that are his size that can do that. That was a short little slant that he was able to turn around on a dime. That's impressive. That's why they liked him. We could argue, should they have taken him in the first round? That's a different debate, but yeah, that's why they like him. And to see kind of the mental catching up with, his physical capabilities is a promising sign, no doubt.
And, the funny thing is like Robinson actually got him a little bit off the line there, and he compensated because he knew where he's supposed to be. He compensated because of athleticism. And I think that was a big sign. And so, but I do think, just can they build momentum? What did you see from the defense that maybe besides the takeaways, was there something else that you saw today from them that you say, hey, they can build on this?
Yeah, no, I thought the front played more cohesively. I mean, they were using more of their Cinco packages with the 5 down linemen. I mean, they made some alterations, with their scheme, their overall game plan. A lot of it was geared to stopping the run. That's what this team does in Atlanta. And to hold them to 72 yards, which I think was their second lowest output of the season. And, to basically contain Bijan Robinson, that's no small task. So for them to do that, I thought was really good. And Casey Toohill, huh? Multi-sack game. Yeah. I mean, that shows a front that's playing cohesively, that doesn't happen otherwise.
And I think this is a good game for a guy like him because they like those boots. And, one of the things they like about Toohill has always been his athleticism. Right. And so you saw some of that on the boots, and he forces some pressure there. And so that's a big thing. But it is to me, what stood out is the depth. And you brought up Khaleke Hudson. He needed 9 snaps. They went to the 4-3 more. That's the most we're going to see the 4-3 probably this year, but because the style of offense that they played. Right. But as you brought up Castro Fields on a punt coverage, but there was Dejon Harris on a punt on Crowder's return with a block, Terrell Burgess with a block, all these guys called up. Then you have Cornelius Lucas filling in a tough situation for Charles Leno. And you didn't sit there and say, oh my God, Lucas, you didn't notice him. That was a good thing.
That's always a good thing for an offensive lineman. You don't want to stand out. It's supposed to be 5 guys as one, right? And that's tough because that was a late change due to some unfortunate personal reasons for Charles Leno. But yeah, I mean, and this is a lot of it too is due to injury. Derek Forrest going on injured reserve, Jeremy Reeves going on injured reserve. So, I mean, I thought, the way Ron said it, when you get an opportunity, you got to step up. And these guys, they did, and it does show their depth. And we're finally starting to get to see their depth. Quan Martin finally getting some snaps on defense.
Danny Johnson, Danny
Johnson. Yeah. I mean, this creates more of an uncertain future for Emmanuel Forbes. That's still a question mark because he was benched. I didn't see him out there at all today. But Danny Johnson, I mean, that guy comes in and he makes plays. So
he's in case of emergency break glass. That's who he is. And, he's going to give up some things because okay. Every corner does. And he's going to give up, but he also had the key 4th down.
That key 4th down stop. Yeah. And I thought they played well with him in there. I still think they got to get Emmanuel Forbes going. I
was going to ask you, what do you do with there?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, you want your secondary to get going. You don't want to cost the rest of your team for one player, but that's your 1st round pick. You got to get him going somehow. And you worry the longer it drags on, is that going to hurt his confidence more? That's a tough one. I mean, I was starting to go back and look at, how other teams deal with this? Like Darius Slay was benched as it. Right. He turned out to be a pretty good player.
Well, listen, Diggs in Dallas did not have a great first year. He was a very aggressive and all that. So you do go through that. And I think it's that for the coaches, it's that balancing act. Hey, you need a win. You need someone who can do this, that you can rely on. What this guy's going to do versus this is the kid we drafted who has the talent. We need to get him here. Right. And you know what I mean? That's the dilemma in their head. So, I would think, but it also, listen, when you ask them, it's well, he's got to respond. So they're clearly not seeing more than what we even have been privy to.
And I got the sense that this was decided pretty early on because Danny.
It was very early.
Yeah, Danny Johnson, who's practicing is so.
And we saw that on Wednesday.
Yeah. So I mean, that was inevitable. I guess maybe we'll see if there's a hint that he might get some time going into the New York game, but. Yeah, that's a tough balance. Not an easy call. I mean, especially for a team in this situation where you really need some consistency. You need to stack those wins. And to be in a tough division, you can't afford these lapses,
Well, here's the funny thing with this. They drafted him to get the takeaways.
Yeah.
And he doesn't play. They get 3 of them.
And 40 years. They've never had that many in Del Rio's system.
Right. And I think the other thing too is when you look at Benjamin St-Juste, there was a tough day for him.
It was.
Drake London, he had Kyle Pitts a couple times, Drake London a few times. Right. But the one thing that I think where he's really grown, I think what he really understands is that you've got to fight the next play. And I think that last one where he reads it and he's he knows the ball's coming out fast and he makes the play. I mean, that to me, that shows a sign of growth in him.
Absolutely. And I think that for a lot of guys too. I mean, just that resilience that you need to stay alive in this league. I mean, I think we see it with Sam Howell every week. I mean, he's getting pummeled every week. A lot of it is on him at this point. He's really got to fix that. But
that's the thing is, we're 6 games in now. Can he? He's got a long way to go. But I know like others have pointed this out too. This was an issue with him in college.
Right.
So I just wonder, like, now he has to get better. I think he can get better with it, but that's, it hasn't, there's sometimes we see like glimpses in the first half. I thought he did a really nice job with that. You know, his timing looked better and all that.
Yeah. But I feel like, especially with young quarterbacks, there's typically one facet of their game that they got to really work on. I mean, when Taylor Heineke was here, he's not a young guy, but young in terms of playing experience, you know, it was trying to make the big play or you know, throwing his body around where he shouldn't, and finding that balance of, you know, what is a smart play versus the one that, you know, you really want to make.
Well,
you know,
and I think in the future too, if you know that Sam Howell has trouble with that, you got to build a better front for him. And then say, okay, if he's not going to get better here, then what can you do to offset where you need that little bit extra hiccup on the time to give him that time?
I mean, because defenses are getting to him with, I don't want to say very little effort, but I mean, he's getting blitzed, you know, among the least among quarterbacks and getting hit the most. That's not the ratio you want. So yeah, but again, I like a lot of these are on him, but yeah, they need better protection up front. I'll say this every week until they do, but I'm still amazed that more NFL teams don't invest more in their offensive line. It matters.
Reboot your credit card with Apple Card. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that can earn 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a savings account. A high-yield, low-effort way to grow your money with no fees. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone to start earning and growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners, subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
This fall, stream your favorites and discover more with Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus together. Watch the highly anticipated new season of Loki and see the ghosts materialize in Haunted Mansion on Disney Plus. Catch more frights with The Boogeyman and American Horror Story Delicate on Hulu. And on ESPN Plus, get into the action with college football and NFL. All of these and more streaming now. Get the Disney Bundle with plans starting at $9.99 a month. Plans with ESPN Plus starting at $14.99 a month. Terms apply. See DisneyBundle.com for details.
In the first half, I thought he was very decisive, and that's where I thought he really stood out. And he had to throw to Samuel for the touchdown. He had the throw to Samuel on the first drive on the third down, just to really, you know, get back, hit your plant step, hitch, throw, bullet into zone coverage. I didn't like when the Falcons played zone. I think they're better in man against his team, but they don't listen to me. So I think they took advantage of that. But yeah, you know what I mean? So he was decisive in the first half.
That I agree. And I still think there's a ton of potential there. And it's not like he had a bad game.
No,
he had a very respectable game. The hits are a concern.
Right. That's all it is.
Looks. Yeah. I mean, he missed some looks, but A, what quarterback hasn't, and B, he's young still. You know, I also like Bieniemy's game plan. He altered his game opening script, did not go to a run out of shotgun for the first time this season. Amazing. They got Terry more involved. I don't think he's ever had a first quarter with 6 targets ever. They still got to find a way to get all their guys involved, though. I mean, Jahan only had 1 target, slipped through his fingers. Logan,
he needs
1 target. Yeah, Jahan needs more. He's got to catch him, but yeah, he needs more.
And I think, like, you know, it's funny because I felt like going in here, the matchup against Alford was going to be a good one for them. Yeah. And that's where Samuel scored. And just like, I felt like, you know, just watching, if you can do a hard plant stem go, that's where you get him. That's what he did. Right. So they did listen to me there, Nikki. And that's why I'm very proud of that.
Do you
so
get commission off these?
I do. So, you know, I did I did have the Falcons only scoring 16 because I knew they'd go for 2 and miss. So I didn't know that. I knew I had 16.
You do, like, you can sense these things.
I mean, I do work for ESPN. So anyway, let's get back to the serious stuff. But the other thing, speaking of Bieniemy, and I agree, like getting Terry involved early is key because nobody gets this team going more. It's like a running back when you get going. Like there's an energy that they feed off when McLaurin has some big plays early. But the other thing I like, there are 2 plays in particular that I really liked from Bieniemy. The 4th and 1, where you fake handoff with the middle, but you have the tight end in motion and he pulls around the end and Howell gets it. Just a really good play call. I think it was the same drive, the 18-yard pass to McLaurin, really well set up. And he comes from the right side, sneaks across formation, but you had a cover 3. You have 2 guys going down the seam, occupy the corner, boom to McLaurin, just a really nice design. I felt like there was a good rhythm. I think we got a good glimpse of that offense in the first half of where it can get to.
Right. No, I totally agree. I mean, you got to get, I think they're always going to have trouble getting all their playmakers the ball. They are deep in skill players. That's the reality of it, which is a good problem to have. But I do like the way that, when things aren't working, they do change things up. I will give them credit there. But yeah, I do think this offense has a lot of potential. Is it perfect? It's nowhere near finished in my mind. It's, but they have something to work off of. And I think Sam Howell is a big reason for that. You can't go very far without a quarterback.
No. And I think one of the reasons why they feel like they can sustain, maybe because we can't sit here and say they've turned around. It's one win on the road. Right. And just like the Eagles game, even though they lost, you can't say that, well, the moral victory stuff, well, it doesn't make. Right. And I don't either. To me, it's like you build on playing well. Right. You don't build on moral victory. You build on playing well. And I don't know, like they have to go out and prove that they can go beat the Giants. And then you get the Eagles again at home. That's when you'll start to really.
Yeah. And the thing with Terry, I mean, at the most basic level, he is your leading receiver. He is your best receiver. And man, if you're not going to get the ball to Jahan, I think Jahan is exceptional, man, just because his route running. But you just paid the man $70 million something. Like you should get him the ball. You should make good on your investment. So I just kind of always go back to that, very basic fact with Terry. Like you should get him the ball more.
And he also, because like, again, there's a different energy that flows with the offense when he's making plays because of, I think, his passion. Yeah. And they also know, like Terry will say, guys come up to me and say, you need to get the ball more early, but he doesn't like to go to the coaches and say things because he doesn't want to be that guy who does that, because he said there was one time in the past it didn't work out well for him. Right. But players know that things go better when he gets the ball. They know that.
I mean, when Terry gets a slant, it's lit. Let me just say, it's lit. When Terry gets a slant and he's fired up, it's on.
Yes, that's what I mean. And it's almost like, it has the equivalent of a running back that's just trucking guys. Speaking of which, it's a good segue. And that was, as you know, like you called it in the press box. It was a grown man run on that end of that screen. Nikki hates that
term. I hate it. But I mean, my goodness, what a run by Brian Robinson. He literally ran over Richie Grant there.
That was like, you don't see that too often.
Yeah, no. I mean, you kind of do with Brian Robinson.
Not like that. Like that was a trucking. That was a get the license plate.
Yeah. And Brian do it. I mean, that's the most fired up I've seen him after a touchdown or a run period, which is good to see. I mean, I think his sort of journey and learning this new scheme has been really interesting to me, because I feel like there was a lot of frustration at first just as he was trying to adjust to it. But you're really starting to see flashes of what he can be, just as a pure rusher and pass catcher, but also how he can really help this team. And you can kind of see the gears spinning, and it's fun to watch because he's a good player.
The other one I forgot to mention, was speaking of guys who contributed, Chris Rodriguez had a couple nice runs. And I enjoy watching him run because you talk about a guy who lowers his shoulder and booms. So I think he's going to be something. I don't know what, but I think he can help them as they go forward.
No, he's a powerful little back. I mean, I like watching
little. He's not little. He's compact. They're all big. Well, he is compact.
I mean,
like I don't look at him as like,
he's not Jared Patterson little, but like he's, whatever. Now you got me in my head. I like how those three backs complement each other too. I thought Gibson's run was good. Fun fact, it was also sort of a homecoming for Gibson and Rodriguez.
That's right. That's right. They're both there.
Yeah. And Montez, Atlanta. But yeah, no, I like how they're getting their backs involved. I would like to see the run game more often. It was more balanced today. What they have, like 22, 23, just some run pass.
Much more balanced.
Yeah, Chris Russell will love that. But you know, I like what they showed today. Still plenty of work to do.
Well, that's what I'm gonna say. So wrapping it up here, like, where do they go? Because what is it? You know, again, I don't want to make too much of one win. It's a win, but in this league, a win can be tough. I mean, I go back to, like, look at the Niners in Cleveland. They lost today, and like, I know they're injuries, but there's still, like, every week there's this weird game, so you don't know. So you've got to stack W's. And I would also say, like, the Falcons are, like, I think they're a quarterback away from being a really good team, and their defense, right. Their defense is pretty good.
Yeah.
So like, that's not, you know, but you get short field, you capitalize. So, but anyways, so what do you need to see going forward from this point?
Just consistency, you know, cleaning up more of those mistakes that, you know, the coaching staff has been preaching. You know, some of it is basic stuff, like not missing tackles that turn into, like, you know, big gains. You know, how avoiding some of these hits, you know, but the protection has been okay up front, but, you know, consistency, I think that's still the biggest thing. You know, when you have a decent game like this, build on it. I mean, next week is, the Giants are, you know, not in great shape, but it's a road game against a divisional opponent. That's
where they have trouble.
Yes. You know, Daniel Jones always turns into like this elite mobile guy against them. So yeah, every week for this team is going to be a big week just because of their consistency. Can they stack them in a row?
And I think then, you know, and I know then it's like, you have to stack in a row. If you want to keep getting these fans coming back and just believing in what the direction of this program, that you need to stack up a couple. But again, like, you know, if the whole mantra was do your job and, you know, but I think it can be a silly thing to put all these things, you know, like, they're adults. They don't, but if you harp on it, I think if it's the emphasis of your whole week to remind people, like, you know, then it becomes a different deal rather than putting it on the locker room door or anything like that. But, you know, doing your job means that, yeah. And I noticed, like, you and Sam, like, last week you were taking all his quotes, and now, so
Wow.
Sam 48 partner. Anyways, so, but I do think, like, there's something to, you know, now you have to, okay, you did this one week. Now what do you do next?
One isn't enough.
No, it's not. And
No.
so that's where we can wrap up, because it isn't enough. But it's a W. 3-game losing streak is done, and they can build on it, and they absolutely needed to have that, because if not, you know, you don't want to think about it could have been really ugly. You had Mitchell Rales here, Mark Ein here, they're touring. Magic was here.
Yeah.
Magic's Twitter fingers were here.
Magic was tweeting from here or Xing from here. What do we call these days?
And so you don't want to get on Magic's, you know, bad side with that, but they're also touring the stadium, looking at the stuff. So, like, they're going to a few. I'm like, this is a nice stadium, and it was good to see Taylor Heineke. I got a chance to briefly talk to him. So
about shoes. Jordans.
I
Did you write that story about the Jordans? Don't you like Jordans? Tell us again.
I did. I told him I told him if he had gone in there and won, he'd have to get him for his puppy. So,
That would be great.
well, listen, the lights are going out on us. That means it's a wrap. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Nicki for joining me. And you can see it's just gone dark here. Again, Tuesday morning film review, Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern time, live stream. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next time.